And it is time once again for another AEW Dynamite review here on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Hello, how are you? I am Warren. Hope you are having a lovely week so far. I am currently petting Juno, who is just out of frame because, as many of you know, she is extremely camera shy, and she will be exiting the premises very soon because I mentioned her name first and foremost. She doesn't want to be on camera. And because she doesn't like it when I speak really loud, and there she goes. She's already gone. It never lasts very long. God bless her. She just wants to be left alone. She just wants to get her pets, and that's about it. And I can't blame her. You know, let's just celebrate the fact that she came here. Regardless. So, it is the 28th of August, 2025. Today we're going to talk about the August 27 edition of AEW Dynamite that took place at the 2300 Arena over there in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. 916 people packed into the venue to take part of the first night of a 3-week residency that AEW is doing there at the 2300 Arena, which essentially means that they sold out the place. That's all there is to it. There weren't any tickets left. They got everyone they could packed into the show, and I'm kind of flabbergasted at the amount of comments of discussion going around where people are saying, "Oh wait, look, it looks so small. It looks so small." Yeah. What happened here? We're coming off of a big pay-per-view where they were at the O2 and was packed to the gills, and now they come here and it's so small. And I'm like, it's the ECW arena. What were people expecting, that suddenly we could pack 5,000 people into this place? Like It's never been a big venue. It has never been considered to be a big venue. You don't go as a promotion to the 2300 Arena to, pack it up with thousands of fans. You go to the 2300 Arena because it's the 2300 Arena. I don't know what to tell you. You want to just tap into that nostalgia, that mystique. That's why you're doing it. It's not for any other reasons. And I find it extremely disingenuous that people seem surprised. I mean, when NXT went there a couple of months ago, it didn't look huge. It didn't look like it was packed to the gills. Then again, NXT runs in a warehouse week after week. So I guess no one really saw the difference because it's just par for the course. But again, I don't know what people were expecting, and especially people who I thought would know better, like actual wrestling fans who are, who work in wrestling media, who have been around for more than a cup of coffee. I feel like, and they are having these types of thoughts, and I would have figured that they would have put one and one together in this circumstance and be like, well, of course, and not make a big deal out of it. I don't understand why this is somewhat of a point of contention amongst fans in the aftermath of this show. How stunned we are that the venue is small. It's the 2300 Arena. Like it's ECW Arena. I don't know what people were expecting. I really don't. And all I can say, I think this is one of these circumstances where you can absolutely point to someone who is mentioning this, who's making this a talking point, and say, well, this is a bad faith argument. This is bad faith. Well, why are you using your social media platform to talk about how small the 2300 Arena is when it has always been this way? Anyone who ever saw an ECW show, or even some of the revivals that happened, or, just has a reasonable brain, like that would be just saying, yeah, I mean, yes. And yet AEW made the choice to go there nonetheless. I mean, this was a point of contention. There's a lot of us who talked about this, maybe not at length, because it really wasn't that big of a deal, but a lot of us were talking about the fact that, well, they're going to go do 3 weeks at the ECW arena. I mean, it's a small venue. It's tiny. They're going to try and pack as many people as they can in there, but we're not going to escape the idea that it's small. And a lot of people were actually questioning whether or not this was a good idea. I get the nostalgia thing, don't get me wrong, and Tony Khan has an attachment to the place as well. He's been there multiple times as a fan. I can understand running the place from that perspective, but there's also the business side of things where where we were thinking, well, look, they want to run that venue, good for them, but I mean, it's not necessarily they're not going to draw tons of people. There's not going to be tons of fans joining in. Not going to come across as a big time thing, especially not, like what happened with Forbidden Door. So, I mean, a lot of people question it. A lot of people wondered and questioned, if this was a good idea, and they decided to run it. And I guess they can do it with a certain amount. I guess since the deal is what I'm trying to say. Since they got the big media deal, I guess they can do this kind of stuff. Look, I've talked about this multiple times when, in regards to, especially when WWE back in the day started getting these big media deals, attendance overall becomes much more secondary. If you're not dependent on attendance to pay the bills and make sure you stay afloat and whatnot, then you've got the leeway to do other things, to try some stuff out, to not care if your arena is a quarter full or if your arena is a quarter full or a third full, or you know what I mean? So in this circumstance here, running the ECW arena or the 2300 arena now is absolutely due to AEW's media deal, which allows it to do this, which allows it to go into a venue that cannot seat more than 1,000 fans, under 1,000 fans even, allows them to go there and have their shows for 3 weeks there and, save money on, transportation and whatnot. I mean, that's the media deal that's allowing them to do that, to get the vibe, to get the environment of the 2300. And so, I'm kind of looking at it. I'm like, okay, it is what it is. And, ultimately it's AEW's money, but I don't know why it's become a talking point when it was something that, again, everyone sort of saw coming. But the people who are trying to make it a talking point, as I said, I think you can point to them and say, well, these are absolutely bad faith arguments. I've seen in, all sorts of comments, particularly in regard to how clean the presentation is, because, the ECW arena, a lot of people have memories of it being coming across as a lot grimier and whatnot. And to a degree, I agree. Yes. Back in 1997, I guess, with the low budget production value that ECW had, yeah, it did come across as a lot grimier and whatnot. Maybe the venue could benefit from being a little darker or whatnot, but here's also the thing. Not a lot of people don't seem to either realize or are conveniently forgetting is that ECW arena that everyone knows about, the nostalgia from back in the 90s, it doesn't exist anymore. There's a reason why they call it the 2300 arena, and it's been revamped completely. Like it's cleaner. You've got some proper lighting rigs. Like everything looks better. Whereas whereas what we called the arena back in the day was a fucking warehouse. It's just and that's, I think, something that people in this circumstance, in this day and age, are kind of not correlating one to one. it's not officially called the ECW Arena anymore for reasons, and it's called the 2300, which was created, to host a ton of things. They do wedding receptions there now. You wouldn't have done that in the setup of the old of the old ECW Arena back in the day. Where it still smelled like Sandman's beers all over the place. You don't do that anymore. This venue, which wants to be a little more multi-purpose, a little more, a little on the higher end. I'm not saying like it's this, this top-notch venue, but something a little cleaner, something a little nicer. It's an extremely different place to begin with. So those who were wondering, who are saying, oh, it's not as grimy or whatnot. No, but the building is not. The venue is not. It's a different venue than what it was in 1996. And thankfully, because if it was the same building, like the same setup and everything 30 years later, Jesus Christ, it'd be gross. And no one should actually go there. Does that make sense? Does all of this make sense? That being said, I guess the production could have benefited. I sort of touched on it. I think the production could have benefited maybe from being a little darker, a little, a little grimier, a little bit, maybe not as clean, but we're in the age of the 4K production, and the crew are what they are, and they have their equipments and so on and so forth. I mean, if you decide to do that, you absolutely run the risk of looking like a parody or trying too hard to look like something that isn't the case anymore, right? If they had tried too hard to really be like to get like that 1996 DV tape look, you know what I'm talking about? It probably wouldn't have been the same. In fact, very likely wouldn't have been the same, and it would have been pointed out, and people would have said they're trying too hard. They're just trying too hard. So look, I don't know how much ECW nostalgia is still worth these days, but it's generating a lot of criticism. Will it be worth it? Look, maybe Tony is just going to get it out of his system. But I'm going to tell you one and move on. Hang on. Let me finish the thought before starting up another one. Maybe Tony will just get it out of his system, and that'll be that for callbacks to ECW times. And look, I understand that this is one of the meccas of pro wrestling too in North America. Don't get me wrong. I understand everything. I know why they're doing it from top to bottom. I personally don't have a problem with it. I personally don't have a problem with them renting the venue, especially when the crowd is into it. They're excited, they're raucous, they're loud. This show started off with a guy who dashed out of work, ran from his, jumped out of his FedEx truck, punched out, didn't even go home to change, ran to the venue in his work clothes to scream obscenities at Cash Wheeler coming in. Now, if that isn't the most basic representation of what the ECW arena should feel like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it started off, the show started like it belonged in the ECW arena, just with complete and utter penis, I guess. Just like unfiltered, uncensored. Well, they were censored, but you get what I'm saying. Don't make me go through this any more than I already have. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, enough talk about that. Let's get into the show itself that opened up with a recap of the Death Riders, the Young Bucks, and Gabe Kidd. Although I think officially now Gabe Kidd is part of the Death Riders. Is this what I understand? I don't think we have to add him in like as a separate entity. Like I think now it's been I think it's been established that Gabe Kidd is a member of the Death Riders now, right? He's not just a hired gun, is he? It's fine. And look, to my New Japan fans out there, I know there's a lot of people who are upset at this idea that, oh no, another New Japan guy is about to get gobbled up by Tony Khan. Oh, gee willikers. Listen, if I'm Gabe Kidd and I have an open door to another wrestling promotion, AEW specifically, that can offer me dates and, give me probably a little more money, probably a lot more money than what I'm making in New Japan right now, considering that New Japan is a complete and total mess right now. I'm keeping this door open. I'm actively working to making this open door stay nice and open. And if they want me to walk the whole way through, I just might. And whose fault is that ultimately? See, this is the thing that ultimately is going to happen in the case of Gabe Kidd, where it's going to be another situation where the hardcore New Japan fans are they're gonna start pointing fingers, right? They're gonna do the DiCaprio meme, and they're gonna there you go. There's another guy that AEW is stealing from New Japan, right? But I don't blame anyone to want to hit the bricks and get the hell out of Dodge when it comes to New Japan until there is some serious changes. Like, New Japan has not changed for the past 3 to 4 years and is in the position that it's in right now, in the creative rut. And I mean, they're in the dumps. New Japan is absolutely in the dumps, and they have no one to blame but themselves. I don't want to hear about, AEW took our biggest stars. It befalls New Japan to create new stars, and they had years to do it while Okada and Ospreay were still there, and Jay White. They had years to do it, and they didn't. And then Ospreay and Okada left, and Jay White left, and they still didn't do it, knowing full well that by the end of 2025, start of 2026, Hiroshi Tanahashi would be no longer full-time performer. And then they lose Naito in the meantime, and they're still not creating stars. Somehow this is all AEW's fault, and I can't hear that. And look, I'm even hearing things, apparently Hiromu Takahashi made a really good impression. He made a really, really good impression with this time over in London since last week. It's another guy who I don't blame if he wants to hit the bricks. There's another guy that if he wants to pack it in and go, I'm completely okay with that. What does New Japan have left for him? He wants to be a heavyweight in New Japan. New Japan keeps telling him no. For what reasons? I couldn't tell you. Probably monetary, because the heavyweights get paid more than the juniors. So there's probably that. They refuse to let him shift weight classes, despite the fact that this is what he wants to do, because he feels he's done everything in the junior division. Most of his work, outside of, let's say, some choice matches in the Best of Super Juniors, is good, but is, also sometimes just fine. Hiromu is very, he works on the effort level he wants to. And then he has this match with Kyle Fletcher, which I thought was very good, very, very good. It was one of the best Hiromu matches I've seen in a while, at least outside of Best of Super Juniors. I mean, what's wrong with a guy wanting to test the waters, try out some different opportunities, and go see what happens? Now, what they do with Hiromu, if he does transfer over, that's a whole other matter of discussion. My point being is that I cannot blame anyone from New Japan Pro Wrestling to be exploring alternatives elsewhere because New Japan right now is not in a great place. And I can only assume that morale is in the pits. A big sidebar for something that really doesn't concern this show. Anyway, we had the recap of all that beatdown. That leads us to FTR and Stokely coming out with Cash getting into it verbally with the FedEx guy at ringside, which I thought like I said, that set the mood perfectly for this ECW arena show. And this crowd was rabid. They were into it. It may have been a small crowd, but the energy that this crowd had, and this is what none of these naysayers are going to talk about, how into it and energetic throughout this show, this ECW arena, this 2300 arena crowd was for AEW. And it helped out. I found this crowd was really, really essential to making a lot of their to making this show feel unique, feel special, and not just keep me focused on, wow, there's really not a lot of people in here. AEW has had bigger crowds with much less energy than that. Anyway, Dax is in the ring with and for some reason, like, Paul Turner is already there in the ring. I guess he was getting ready for his match, and then these guys came out. I don't know, but Paul Turner is there, and FTR confront Paul to reverse the decision from their loss at Forbidden Door this past weekend. Turner, of course, refuses. Stokely shoves him. That brings out Adam Copeland, and Christian Cage ambushes Stokely. Chaos ensues, and Christian cuts a promo insulting FTR's fathers, and Copeland makes it official. It will be CNC versus FTR in Toronto on September 20th at All Out. I mean, if you're my age or even like slightly younger, when you heard CNC, you know exactly what popped into your head, right? Gonna make you sweat till you bleed. Is that dope enough? Indeed. That's exactly what came into your head, which I thought was really funny. Good opening segment. I like the dynamic between Cope and Christian here. Again, establishing that Cope is clearly like, the likable baby face, but Christian still is the asshole, because when Christian decided to go after the fathers, Copeland was like, no. He took the microphone away. He's like, don't do it. But eventually gave him back the microphone, and he did do it. So there you go. And it got boos from the Philly crowd when Copeland took the microphone away, again, as it should have. A Darby Allin pre-tape. He's showing off his torn ear, making it bleed some more so that he can use it as finger paint, and he can use it as finger paint to write the words "all out" on a wall with his blood. There's fire and whatnot. Darby Allin, the greatest student filmmaker in the history of All Elite Wrestling. Jon Moxley then defeated Daniel Garcia in our first match of the night. I thought this was really good. I thought it was really, really good. Hard-hitting, match with a lot of technical elements, because Danny was doing a lot of grappling on this one, targeting Moxley's leg, and Moxley was doing a great job selling it too. Lots of reversals, and a final stretch that, really did seem to be going in the direction of Daniel Garcia. But if you've watched wrestling for more than 10 minutes, then you knew that this was inevitably going to end with Garcia taking the pin, or at least losing the match, which he did. Moxley wins the wins the match via a small package. There's even Matt Menard, who came in to sort of compensate for the fact that the Death Riders were specifically Wheeler Yuta and Marina Shafir were out there maybe wanting to interfere. But I thought this was very good. I thought it was really, really good. Another great match by Jon Moxley on TV. Another great TV match by Jon Moxley. And, Dan Garcia was into it. You kind of feel like they want to do something with him, which is good. So I'm all for it. The match, Wheeler Yuta gets on the mic, basically talks to Darby Allin and tells him, I'm going to speak on behalf of Jon Moxley because he's not going to waste any breath on you. And he says the answer is no, right? So he's, again, Mox turning down a challenge. He doesn't, that's kind of Mox's thing. It's on his terms as much as possible. And that's not what's going to happen here, at least for the time being, where Wheeler Yuta decides to, where lays down the law. And while Yuta is talking in the ring, outside the ring, just behind him, you see Mox and Garcia having an exchange. They're not fighting. They're not shoving. It's as if Mox is talking to him. Daddy Magic is trying to keep Garcia away, but Garcia is sort of listening. They're having a very, but he's being stubborn about it. He's being confrontational, as if Mox is trying to tell him something that Garcia doesn't want to hear. So I don't know exactly what was going on here, but when Yuta saw it, he kind of seemed a little surprised at it. And then, when Moxley finally walked away, Yuta sort of confronted Garcia for a second. They've got a long history. I don't know where this is going exactly. Garcia joining the Death Riders or not. Look, hey, the last time they did this kind of thing, they were doing it with Chris Statlander, and we all thought that Chris Statlander might be joining the Death Riders, and that's not the case. Anyway, we'll get to that in a few minutes, but that's that for now. We come back from commercial, and Wheeler Yuta is back in the ring, and he has a microphone, and he's trashing the Philly crowd, saying that he's from here, that he worked ring crew here, basically establishing his history and saying that nobody here respects him, and he hates that, and he mocks the fact that he took out Will Ospreay, Chuck Taylor, and Bryan Danielson. Then the lights go out, and Hook returns. He attacks Yuta, and then does the Red Rum, and then Superman punches him. Is that going to be his new finisher? Is that what they're trying to do with Hook? They're trying to give him a new finisher, and it's going to be the Superman punch, which is kind of weird because it's part of Orange Cassidy's repertoire. But then again, I don't know if it was exactly a Superman punch or something else, but it sure looked like one. Anyway, yeah, good. I mean, I'm glad that Hook is back. I'm glad Hook is back, and really, this is still a guy that Tony sees a bright future in. He really likes him. He's apparently going to continue getting some kind of push. I think he's a fine little wrestler, but maybe not on the level that Tony would like him to be for the push he's been getting. And, I've been saying that that Hook in the Ops was a tremendous idea. I think it was a great place for him to grow and learn, surrounded by Katsuyori Shibata and Samoa Joe. Well, clearly the injury has derailed some stuff. He's probably not going to be in the Ops anymore. Hobbs is benefiting from that and benefiting big time. I don't know. He'll be back to being a solo act, I guess. We'll see how it goes. Wasn't entirely successful those last times, but we'll see now. And I like the music. I think it kind of fits him for this, the idea that he's this New York tough guy, coming into a remix of some old style, crooner Rat Pack type of music with a beat to it. I don't hate it. The Action Bronson theme was better, but hey. Cuts a pre-tape backstage complaining about the lack of respect. This was taped after Forbidden Door. Complains about the lack of respect, and he threatens Mark Briscoe, saying that he should have burned him alive. Hangman Page, that when he comes around to challenge him after executing his contract, which now can only be executed within a week's notice, he will not only fight him, he will take his soul. I said it once, I'll say it again. Angry MJF is the best version of MJF. And his promos are focused and he's really good. It's really the best version of MJF. Chris Statlander and Harley Cameron defeat Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. Competitive back and forth match. It was fine. Statlander taps Ford with an armbar. Didn't finish her with the Saturday night special. What did they call it? Saturday Night Fever, which would have been the Wednesday Night Fever. Anyway, I thought this was fine. The match, Megan Bayne attacks Chris Statlander. Statlander holds her own, and Willow Nightingale shows up. But after the attack, it was kind of weird. It was a little weird. And so Statlander and Willow still have issues. They're standing across from each other, and Harley Cameron is there between them. I think the idea is that Harley Cameron might be the person to have these two former friends reconcile. As long as they just give Chris Statlander a direction, I'll be fine. I'm kind of disappointed that it seems that they're dropping this Death Rider stuff with Wheeler talking in her ear, or have they? It feels that way. it kind of feels like it. But look, I've said it before. I said it a couple of weeks ago. I'll say it again. I think Chris Statlander is the worst booked wrestler on the entire AEW roster. If they finally give her some kind of direction and something to do that is clear, well, I can get behind it. But I'm arm's length, and on this one, I'm still not excited for it. Ladies Monet comes out for her championship celebration. She's got her 9 championships all laid out on a table, saying that she is aiming to surpass Ultimo Dragon, calling him out by name, saying that he had 10 belts and she wants to beat that record. And the thing is that Ultimo Dragon won all those belts on one night. That's also important to note. So she, and she dismisses Alex Windsor's contention that she made her tap. I think it was in the Dynamite match last week. If I can't quite remember. Was it at the O2? I can't quite remember. I'm drawing a blank. She threatens to put Windsor in the hospital in a bed right next to her man. And then she dances and we're done. I thought something was going to happen here, but clearly nothing did. And we're extending this Mercedes Alex Windsor feud a little more, which I think is okay. I don't think Alex Windsor has fought Mercedes Moné one-on-one is what I'm getting to. So I guess you'd be able to blow off that feud pretty clearly, pretty simply, and be a match I'd be into, quite frankly. Mark Briscoe cuts a promo from the chicken farm. He says, "I'm sorry I can't be there, but that's because I have I have something to take care of here at home." And he shows off the newest baby member of the Briscoe family. I think this is Mark Briscoe's 700th child, I believe. No, congratulations. I'm kidding. He does have a lot of children, but Of course, congratulations to Mark Briscoe, and basically, hands off the baby and says, calls out MJF, says he'll burn his dreams down, and he challenges Kyle Fletcher to a TNT Championship match in Philadelphia, which will happen during the proceedings here. We get Don Callis coming out, and he's accompanied by the Wardlow, who is, unless you missed it, he is back in AEW, showed up at Forbidden Door as a surprise. He cuts a promo insulting Philadelphia in Spanish, and then brings out the family for the next upcoming match. Kazuchika Okada, Konosuke Takeshita, Hechicero, and Josh Alexander defeat the team of Brodido and Jet Speed in a really fun match. I thought this was a lot of fun. Brody King dominating early on in this match. He's doing all sorts of stuff. He's doing his sentons, and the Jet Speed guys show off their tandem offense. Maybe they have a tandem offense too. I don't know, but we're going to stick to the offense here. Double hip tosses, drop kicks, all that stuff. There's a lot of teasing in this match between Kazuchika Okada and Konosuke Takeshita. So just within the Don Callis family, something that started weeks ago, right? Weeks and weeks and weeks ago, where they just even before they were in the Don Callis family, where they just cross paths, stare each other down and move on. We're teasing this a lot more, because they actually got physical in this match where Okada legitimately, literally shoved Takeshita down. And I like the dynamic, especially since both are in the Don Callis family, because these are two alpha males, right? These are, you have Kazuchika Okada, who's a top dog kind of guy, and Takeshita literally calls himself the alpha. So, you've got some, you know how this is. You've got some two big dick energy that are just it's my, I'm the top guy in this group. No, I'm the top guy type of thing. And what I'm hoping for, this is what I'm hoping for, that we get some kind of setup where IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Konosuke Takeshita, because yes, that is a prediction, gets into a situation, maybe in time for the Continental Classic, where he heats up a feud with Okada, where this leads to a big finals of the C2, where Takeshita ends up defeating Okada and taking the titles and being, on one hand, an IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, and then also being Unified Champion, winning the C2. I think that'd be pretty rad. I think that would be really fun. That would make for a hell of a match. And look, they're teasing it big time. So excited at that idea. I'm really, really excited at that idea. What I'm less excited of is Brodido coming out of their first win as first match as tag team champions, and they lose the match. I know this wasn't a tag team match, but that I'm less excited about. Brodido should have. Look, I love this match. I thought it was a blast. I think it was a lot of fun. But I kind of also feel like Brodido should have gotten just a tag team match, as champions, just come out, flex their muscle. People love them. They're ready. They've gotten behind the Brodido, so might as well do it. This was a lot of fun. You got Bandito and Jet Speed doing triple dives, and then, the match breaks down into the spot where everyone does something cool. It's Josh Alexander who catches Mike Bailey and rolls him up for the win. Good match. Big advocate for these multi-man matches on AEW programming. Makes good for me. I like it. And Page hits the ring, cuts a promo thanking Ospreay for everything he's done. And boy, they're really driving this injury thing home. And they never mentioned the neck, right? Commentary did mention during the evening that Ospreay was out for an undetermined amount of time, but they never mentioned why. They're not talking about the injury. So again, that's very interesting that they're not bringing that forward. Then Hangman, back to the promo itself. Hangman, after thanking Ospreay for having his back and doing everything he did for AEW, he said, Hangman says that, next time that, if ever MJF signs that contract, he'll beat his ass before the ink is dry. Well, the ink is going to have a week to dry. So hopefully he signs with some very sloppy penmanship. But Don Callis then shows up, reminding Adam Page that he being himself won his first. He being Adam Page won his first title from him, and he had a weakling, on his side or something to that effect, and he was going to get the title back. But the question was, who from the Don Callis family was going to stick up for him? And that brings out just like practically everyone, right? The guys who were in the 8-man tag and Lance Archer and Rocky Romero, and they surround the ring, and Hangman goes right for it, dives onto Alexander. He gets overwhelmed, and then the music hits. Kenny Omega shows up looking like he's Triple H. like what? He's got the jeans, the long wet hair, and Kenny's got, he's a little chest buff now. He's not, juiced up to the gills like Triple H used to be, but I was sort of looking at it and was like, that's some interesting Triple H cosplay that we're doing here. But of course gets a big reaction from everyone in the building and myself, and helps Hangman take out the Don Callis guys. Archer tries to choke slam Omega, and then they do their combination V-trigger buckshot lariat finish that they did once back in the day, whence they were a tag team. So they brought that back to the delight of everyone, and then they shake hands and hug. They're friends. I don't quite remember what I think the status with Omega and Page, when they did that Elite reunion that one time, I think they're okay, right? I think they're fine now. So it's like, hey, it's good to see you again, buddy, pal. So you've got old friendships being rekindled here. And I'm also very happy to see Kenny Omega hanging around for this pay-per-view cycle. Sort of talked about it a bit last week, a little more on the pod. Well, no, I actually talked about it on the Forbidden Door review, where I was concerned as to in regards to the star power that was going to be left with all of the injuries going on right now, with Ospreay and Strickland being out, and then wondering, well, what's Omega's status, right? Is Kenny still around, or is he part-timing? What is he doing? I was, because no disrespect to Hangman Adam Page, but he was going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to tip-top baby faces in the company. And I was hoping that Omega would be around, and Omega is going to be around. So that's definitely a sigh of relief. That's something that AEW is absolutely going to need to continue to have that kind of diversity in their, at the tippy top when it comes to baby faces. I think if Omega is going to be around for this pay-per-view cycle, I think that's very good news. Tony Storm and Mina Shirakawa cut a promo. Basically, Tony being Mina's mouthpiece, because Mina is challenging Athena for the women's title, the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship, I should say, at Death Before Dishonor this Friday, tomorrow. There's a Ring of Honor pay-per-view. I bet you didn't know that. And Athena sort of has some pre-tape comebacks. Look, there you go. The Ops then defeated the Gates of Agony, the GOA, and Ricochet, heavy-handed, hard-hitting trio's title defense that sees Ricochet get himself cracked across the back by MVP with his cane, which leads to the end where Samoa Joe taps out or submits Ricochet with the Coquina Clutch. And then the Hurt Syndicate, after the match, show up to brawl with GOA. So much for a lot of people's wishful thinking that we were no longer going to see the Hurt Syndicate, on TV ever again. That's not going to happen. And in fact, we're moving on to another feud here, which makes sense. Which makes sense. Of course, they set this up at Forbidden Door and whatnot, and this is what we're going to lead into. And look, I mean, one of the criticisms and criticism that I can't disagree with is that the Hurt Syndicate work with all these people, but no one gets over, no one looks better, and so on and so forth. And now we're moving towards the Gates of Agony, which is a team that does feel on the rise right now in AEW. So AEW I think would benefit tremendously from having this match end with the GOA looking better going in than coming out than when they were than when they were going in. But look, we'll see how it goes, because I'm still not impressed with how this three-way match that went from an elimination match to a standard three-way. I'm not impressed with how the Hurt Syndicate were handled for that finish. I don't want to get into it again. I've said everything I had to say about that, but look, there's a lot of smoke to this fire, folks. There's a lot of smoke. I think there might be something to this fact that these guys just they don't want a job, or at least maybe one guy doesn't. Because here's the thing that I feel like a lot of people forget in this circumstance. Shelton Benjamin worked the C2 and he took losses there. It didn't seem to be much of a problem. We'll see how it continues here. And then this leads us to the main event, the wild fucking main event of Darby Allin defeating Claudio Castagnoli in a Falls Count Anywhere match. And it starts backstage where Darby attacks Claudio out of nowhere. Claudio gets the upper hand and then does the classic Darby Allin match where one guy throws Darby Allin around everywhere hard and into everything, tons. That's all there is to it. That's what a Darby Allin match is. And it's fine. It's fine because these matches are different. They're different from anything else you'll see on an AEW show, where it's just one guy eating complete and utter garbage, complete and utter shit for the majority of the match. And then somehow, the idea is that he's resilient and, can be defeated or it can be beaten down. And then he does, he gets the big win, right? But yeah, there's a shopping cart and Darby gets thrown around backstage. They go out into the arena and Claudio is doing a giant swing into the barricade, which had a lot of velocity, honestly. Then he shimmies up a post, a pillar, I guess, in the building. He shimmies up and Coffin drops off the top of it onto Claudio on the floor, which was a hell of a dive. And then Claudio, gorilla presses Darby. And then before he does it, hang on a second there, Warren. He's telling commentary, move away from your table. He's telling them to move. And he goes and he grabs Darby, gorilla presses him and launches him over the top rope. And Darby goes crashing onto commentary, bounces off the table. An incredible bump and legitimately amazing. Here's the thing with these types of situations, with these Darby Allin matches, is that the guy who's working the match with Darby, always looks like a fucking monster. Like it's like when he works with Brody and now with Claudio, where Claudio's just like tossing him around. And Claudio's a great guy to do it. Like Claudio's, he's as strong as an ox. So he's another guy who can absolutely pull it off. But, the way Darby sells and the bumps that he takes are just absolutely insane. Darby, does his best to fight back, hits the Yoshi Tonic and goes up for a coffin drop, connects it, does a second one, lands as well. Then he covers Claudio for the win. And then after the match, Gabe Kidd ambushes Darby. Darby fights back. Moxley comes in. He double legs Moxley. Gabe then sort of gets back in control of Darby, who takes a powder, who hits the bricks, runs through the crowd, and Gabe Kidd gives chase, leaving Moxley in the ring alone with Claudio. Kidd is angry and throws a bin around. So there you have it. I thought this was a good main event, really good main event with a good post-match angle. Here's the thing. There we go again with Jon Moxley. It was exactly like when Jon Moxley was refusing to work Hangman when he was saying no. He's saying no, but he really he's just being a hypocrite about it. He said no to Darby in the, earlier in the evening at the start of the show. And then by the end of the evening is like, okay, well, this match is going to be done because look, Mox comes back out and beats the piss out of him. So, and Mox is a hypocrite in these types of situations. And I think it's fine. I think it's good. I thought this whole Dynamite was good. After 2 weeks of very iffy Dynamites where I was a little low on everything and wondering how things were going to go and maybe a little pissed off, particularly at last week's Dynamite. This one felt good. I think the energy was there. Everyone was giving top effort. The wrestling was tremendous. I thought this was top to bottom, really good TV wrestling. I don't have any complaints with it. Thought the angles were all good. Everything was good. Stuff was happening. This was good. And there were less than 1,000 people in the building, and who gives a fuck? I had a great pro wrestling show to watch last night, and I feel like the people who were in the 2300 arena last night had a great show there as well. They had a tremendous time. So mission accomplished, if you ask me. It's good stuff. It was good, a good show. What else do you want me to say other than I am done with this review? Thank you, everyone, for watching. Leave a like if you're watching this on YouTube. 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or 5-star rating on Spotify as well. It's Thursday. That means later on tonight, I will be streaming. So if you can make it on time over on the YouTube channel, I'd be glad to have you. Otherwise, I will be back with some reviews. We're going to be reviewing Death Before Dishonor, of course, this weekend. So there's going to be WarrenHayes content popping up over the next couple of days. We'll be back next week with the rest of the rigmarole. Subscribe, join, follow, whatever you want to do. Thank you very much for being here. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me. And I will see you next time.